The element of air is my least talked about element on this entire channel, and that is going to be rectified today. So, today we're going to be talking about the element of air, shall we? I am Dave the Amateur Magus. On this channel I talk all about the mechanics behind ceremonial magic, occultism, esotericism, and the mechanics behind everything you can find within a dusty old grimoire. On today's episode, we will be talking about the element of air. If you enjoy this content and you enjoy my channel, please subscribe to the Patreon link down in the description where you get exclusive access to Patreon exclusive videos, the Occultic Manual series, which is a monthly write-up of various occult topics at a more than beginner level. Now, let's get into the topic. So, the element of air is my least talked about element on this channel. I just don't really use the element of air in my practice. That being said, the element of air is quite interesting, as it is the element most associated with the mind. However, the element of air is... While it is interesting, I find that the element of air is my least favorite to work with for a variety of reasons, mostly because I think mental magic is, generally speaking, going to be an absolute pain in the ass, and at best, it's an absolute pain in the ass, and at worst, it is a waste of your time. That being said, the element of air is important, because the element of air will teach you and communicate. The element of air is going to be the primary element that I'm going to use whenever I need to use communication, if I feel so inclined to use elements in my communication magic. Typically, I will go over and I will use the planetary power of Mercury for a majority of situations. And this is going to lead to a big issue, because if I'm going to go to elementals, I want to go to elementals for things that only elementals can do. And most of the domain of the element of air can just as easily be covered by the elemental, well, not the elemental, the planetary power of Mercury. The planetary power of Mercury is attributed to astrology is mostly going to have a large section of its portfolio overlapping with the element of air. And this is not a bad thing. However, in my personal practice, I'm going to go with the planetaries if I can help it, because I like planetary magic more. Just a preference. But I know a lot of people like the element of air, as anyone with a strong air placement in their chart will tell me multiple times over. So what would I go to the element of air actually for? Well, communication if I'm using a particularly elemental system, or if I'm doing particularly elemental magic. And the reason for this is because the element of air is going to be the element most well associated with communication, networking, and various types of activities. Or if I'm looking for ideas. Generally speaking, I find if I'm looking for ideas, the element of air works a lot better than the planetary power of Mercury. Now, the planetary power of Mercury and the element of air are going to be very similar. The main differences are that the element of air is going to be much more subtle. It's kind of like the difference between raw communication and raw speed. Mercury is going to be raw speed. The element of air is going to be more subtle and more communicative. It's going to be more balanced in its approach and less electric, is a good way of putting it. And that is going to lead to another thing. I will oftentimes tell people that I am not a fan of electric candles, and this is kind of why. At least in my estimation, I attribute the electric candles to be correspondent to the more mercurial, less the planetary, or less the element of fire. This is going to be more of a... They are going to be, because they're using LCDs, they're using more mercurial electronic connections. And this is also going to be paralleled with the element of air. I believe that they kind of correspond to the element of air in a weird way as well, because there is that connection of electrons, despite the weirdness of it. Now, this is, again, not a bad thing. If you electric light candles are better than no candles, or better than just having the normal lights on. But in my estimation, I prefer to have regular, real wax candles. And going back to the element of air, I attribute these electric candles and really artificial things in general to the element of air. Really, if it's a kind of idealized situation, then generally speaking, it's going to be a elemental air situation. The element of earth is the practical one. The element of fire is the one that gets things done to the best of its ability. The element of water will kind of watch, but the element of air is going to shoot for the heavens and hit the first cloud on its way up. However, the interesting things about the element of air is, if you've ever wondered why the tarot cards in the Rider-Waite deck, and generally speaking all tarot cards, are so fucking big, it's because of the nature of how the psychic energy is transferred. It was believed that at the time, the air actually transmitted psychic energy, so to speak. This is how dreams are conveyed, and this is how psychic phenomenon, generally speaking, are conveyed. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, and the like. For those of you who are working out of the red brick, this might have some relevance to you, for if you are working out of the red brick, the elemental grade of air, Theuricus, is where you start working with the moon and the planetary power of Saturn. So both of those are worked in when you are working with the moon, and it also corresponds to the sphere of Yesod. So there might be something there worth mentioning and worth looking into, because the archangel of that grade is, well, Raphael because of air, but for the archangel of the moon, Gabriel. And this is also, if I remember correctly, where you start to... It's been a while, but if I remember correctly, this is also where you start to do dream journals. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of weird correlation between air and dreams. If you look at the symbol for the elemental plane of air, it is just a giant circle. But if you look at the elemental plane of water, it is a moon, which is tilted upwards. It's kind of a weird disc, if that's the symbol for the Tattva according to the Golden Dawn, which are of course used for scrying the elemental planes. Now, the major thing about the element of air that I want to get out of the way is that it's most commonly going to be used in the form of incense in your rituals. You're going to be using ritual incense for a majority of cases. I have seen some people use oil diffusers, but I find that, personally, fire plus air, or fire is going to be really useful, especially if it's fire plus air is really good for banishing, as is salt plus water, which is the other form of that. That's the receptive elements, and fire plus air is going to be the projective elements. That being said, the element of air is going to be, generally speaking, I find the element of air to be kind of too abstract to be practical. I find that a majority of the time that the reason I work with the planetary power of Mercury instead of the element of air is because the element of air is too abstract and quote-quote high-minded for me to get tangible physical results, especially if I'm trying to talk to an air elemental. Like the elemental king of air is, generally speaking, going to be too head in the clouds for me to get tangible, notable results out of for a majority of the time. That being said, there is one thing that the element of air excels at that I really can't go to for anything else, and that will be connections. The element of air is the element of connection, and by connecting things, it can connect very abstract things together. This is the kind of thing that will create in your mind very strange connections, like how hot water is round, according to TikTok, and cold water is spiky, and the word unique is purple. This is called synesthesia, for those of you wondering, and it's when your mind projects attributes onto something that can't actually have those attributes. Like, the word unique can't actually be purple, unless it's written in purple, but me saying it cannot be purple. That being said, when I say the word red, you're probably thinking of something red, or you are thinking of the pure color red. This is the true power of the element of air, the power to connect things that are completely disparate from each other. This is why when you are reading a book, you are able to imagine such vivid landscapes and or details that are actually just not in the book themselves. But the more descriptive the book is, the more your mind, the thing attributed to the element of air, the mind, is able to generate and create more detailed metaphors and interpretations. I have been Dave the Amateur Magus. Once again, hope you guys are having a good day, and if you're not having a good day, hope your day gets better. Take it easy.